YouTube, how's it going? The GOAT House is back with some more position rankings for the NFL draft, and I got edge rusher rankings for you guys today. Pretty good group at the top. I think there's a lot of elite guys. Then there kind of is a gap, and then the depth is pretty solid, but mainly at the top. So if you need a for sure starting pass rusher, you're going to have to get one early here in the first round, maybe mid-first round, because there's some really talented ones, and again, there's a gap. So we're almost finished with these position rankings. A few more defensive groups and offensive line to get to. My final mocks are going to come out. We have another live stream planned for this weekend, most likely Saturday, and then we'll be live during the NFL draft. It all starts April 25th. We start 30 minutes before, and we'll be live throughout the first round here on YouTube, predicting picks when teams are on the clock, reactions, analysis, stuff like that. So it should be a lot of fun. Hopefully you can join us. And there's our subscriber goal. It's at 20K. Like button, notification button, and following our Twitter, which is in the bottom right. That'd be much, much appreciated. Let's get on to my number one pass rusher, and it's very tight through a lot of these guys, but I'm pretty set on my number one. Actually, I am set on my number one, I should say. I like Josh Allen from Kentucky as my number one pass rusher, my number two overall player in the draft, 6'5", 262, so good size, freak athlete for his size too. And really the reason why he's number one is he really does it all. The amount of sacks that he puts out there every season and improving every season, top of the NCAA this year, and, that he adds other things to his game too. You've seen him cover downfield. You've seen it in the red zone, pick up receivers. So very impressive across the board, can stop the run, but I guess that's something, that he can improve on a little bit. But I think he's going to come in right away and be a solid pass rusher because of his speed, athleticism, and strength altogether. People putting out Anthony Barr comparisons, and the crazy thing is that he definitely can be better than Anthony Barr because he's a way better pass rusher than him. Maybe he's not as good in the run game, or he can't cover as good, but it's not far off. And we're talking about only a guy that really hasn't been drafted yet. And I really like when prospects show improvement over the years, and it's exactly what Josh Allen did. Another thing, I think you can fit any defense. Doesn't matter what defense, which team, what kind of scheme they have, they draft him. He's going to come in there and be the starter day one and make a big impact and could be an all-pro rookie. Number two, I got Nick Bosa. A lot of people's number one. I like Nick Bosa a lot. In my opinion, I think he's strictly a 4-3, not saying he can't step back and play 3-4 outside linebacker. I just think he's 4-3. I think he's going to be darn good at it. His burst off the ball, elite. His hand usage, hand techniques, elite. You wish he was a little more athletic, but for his size, 6'4", 266, he's pretty athletic, solid at stopping the run. But the reason Josh Allen over Nick Bosa, I think Josh Allen can do more, like I explained, can play in either defense, and Nick Bosa had the injury this last year. So even though it's really close, it really wasn't like a last-second decision for me. There's some spots throughout these position rankings, like all the position rankings, any of them, that maybe like 7 and 8, and it's so hard to split these guys up. But Bosa's real close to Allen, but I'm pretty confident Allen 1, Bosa 2, and these other guys are even close too. I like Montez Sweat at 3. See, freakish size, 6'6", 260, and then he runs in the 4.4s. He has ridiculous arm length, and it shows up on tape. It's not like he has these things and they don't show up on tape. The arm length, he has the ability to reach so the lineman cannot block him. And you've seen it from time to time on tape with an NFL, coaching staff, defensive, coaching staff. They can develop him and make him even better at this, but he had solid production. And his run stopping ability is very underrated. Very, very underrated. He's very good. And part of it goes with, his athleticism and his reach. He's able to reach across, over and just stop the run in the backfield, and it's very impressive. So a ton of upside for a guy that's already good in Montez Sweat. I'm not huge on comparisons, but I am a fan of the Danielle Hunter comparison for Montez Sweat. I think Danielle Hunter's a little thicker, but in terms of, the style and the way they play, very similar, and Danielle Hunter was mainly a run stopper first. They developed a pass rush ability with him. Sweat, I think, already has a good amount of both. So with some developing, this guy could be freakish, and he already is. Number 4, I got Brian Burns, a guy that's moving up on my board over the last maybe month or two. 6'5", 249. Really, the only weakness with him is that he's, kind of light. But I think he can step back, play 3-4 outside linebacker. Traditionally, the outside linebackers are the 3-4. are pretty much the same thing. You can, compare them to the 4-3 defensive end, except usually the 3-4 outside linebacker is a little more athletic, a little lighter. So I think Burns fits in there. He can play the DM position. He has good bend on the outside. He has good pass rush moves, and he's another very underrated run stopper. But I think my favorite thing about him is his inside spin move. You don't really see an inside spin move from these types of guys that much, and I like that a lot from this athletic guy and Brian Burns. And another thing I from a potential standpoint, what I see that he can do that really wasn't used at Florida State all that much was him dropping back in coverage. I think, with his movement, his abilities, I think he can develop that. I think he can drop back if they need him to. We talk about Josh Allen being able to do that. I think Brian Burns can do it. Maybe not in Josh Allen's level, but I think with some time, he's going to be able to do it. And obviously, so far, I've had first round grades on all these guys. Like I said, there's some darn good guys at the top. And then number 5 is Clelin Ferrell. It's weird seeing a 5 next to Clelin Ferrell's name. It just shows how good the guys are ahead of him, really. Because Clelin Ferrell was dominant his whole career. The first time he stepped on the field for Clemson, you can see it. I remember seeing him like, when is this guy coming out? 6'4", 264. Another guy I view as strictly as a 4-3 defensive end. I'm not going to rule out him dropping back to 3-4, but I recommend it, the 4-3, and I really think that's where he's going to end up. Very strong, very instinctive, solid with his hands. Not the most, he's not super flashy and athletic, and that's, again, we got to start splitting hairs with some of these guys because they're all really good, and that's what kind of brings him down behind the other 4 guys. The other 4 guys are freak athletes. Bosa, not a freak, but he's athletic. Clelin Ferrell, not quite on those guys' level. Not too far off from Bosa in terms of movement and athletic ability. But Clelin Ferrell was dominant every year of his career. Big reason why Clemson's D-line was good, and he's shown it every year. So I like Ferrell. If I had to point out another negative, sometimes he would get sucked in on the inside and take himself out of the plays. It would happen here and there, not overly too much, obviously, because I still have a first-round grade on him, and I think he's a heck of a player. So we're on to the next 5, and we still have some more first-round grades here. Rashawn Gary, it's weird seeing 6 next to Gary, and I want to have him in the top 5. He's the potential guy. He's the boom or bust guy. I originally had him with D-line because, I kind of liked him at 4-3 end, if not 3-4 end, but now because how athletic he is and he looks more in shape, he's most likely will be a 4-3 end. I would not I won't say I won't like it, but I really don't want him on a 3-4 outside linebacker spot. But if he gets drafted to a 3-4 team, I think he'll play outside linebacker, more in shape, more athletic than we thought, or maybe than he was. And lack of production, it's not alarming to me, but it's enough to put him at 6 instead of 4 or 5. He's real close. But mainly the injuries. He sat out a couple times because injuries the last 2 years. So, the production, there's an excuse for it, though. We've seen him been double teamed. I actually seen him been triple teamed before. But very athletic moves. It's almost like he was supposed to be, a defensive tackle, or really like a 3-4, like I was saying. So I think developing more of that outside pass rush will help him, and then he has a lot of potential. And number 7, who actually have a first-round grade on still, late first round, is Ja'Kai Polite. Why? Because he has elite pass rush traits. Really right there at Brian Burns. Similar moves, similar style, has a good bend on the outside, pretty strong, pretty good moves on the inside, and then could work on his run-stopping ability a little bit, though. That's what brings him down to 7. And apparently his character concerns, with teams, interviewing with teams, that's a slight concern for me. Some teams were okay with him, but yeah, could work on the run game, but he's done a very good job reading the run. It just takes a little bit more time than maybe the couple of guys ahead of him. So that's something he can work on, but very athletic off the outside. He can play, I would recommend 3-4 outside linebacker, but I think he can play 4-3 end. Jalen Ferguson's at 8, and then another guy that could help in the run game, but a sack machine. Obviously, NCAA records for sacks, so very impressive. I like him at 3-4 outside linebacker. Another guy that can play 4-3 end. LA Tech, weird defense. You've seen him line up pretty much at end. You've seen him line up at 3-4 outside linebacker. I even seen him come in from more of a, just a regular linebacker, off-the-ball linebacker spot. Very strange because he's not an off-the-ball linebacker, but they used him in different ways. So if you plug 2 things here, you can still use him in different ways because he has experience multiple spots, or you stick him in the spot. Obviously, the NFL coaches know what they're talking about. You stick him in the spot where they think he's right in, and then he can actually produce more. So a lot of upside from Jalen Ferguson. Again, could work on the run game. Christian Miller's 9, a big-time sleeper for me from Alabama, and they missed him in the national championship. He was out, and they missed him big time. You can see it. Not worried about the injury. Originally, it was supposed to be an off-the-ball linebacker coming in Alabama. They switched him to a pass rusher, and with the short amount of time, he developed some pretty good traits, in stopping the run, going outside, could work on an inside move for sure. Maybe not as strong as these guys ahead of him, so could add some strength. But, for a guy with more time, I think he's going to be a heck of a football player. And I can even see him, most likely, I would almost guarantee he's going to end up being a 3-4 outside linebacker. But if he was a 4-3 end or if he was a 4-3 outside linebacker, I would not be shocked. I would not be shocked. We talked about Anthony Barr a little bit ago. He was supposed to be a 3-4 outside linebacker. He ended up being a 4-3 outside linebacker. So I guess somewhat similar situation here. But the reason why I don't think he will be is because he developed a pretty good some pass rush traits, and the 4-3 linebacker would have to develop more of a run stopping game, which he can do, but you would want a little more size and strength on him, which is possible too. O'Shane Ximines is 10, consistently got sacks and forced fumbles, and that's what I like about him. Some freakish plays out of him. If I had to point out a negative, sometimes it looks like he's trying to read the offense, and he kind of gets he's not super instinctive quite yet. If it's possible for them to get there. He kind of looks lost at times, but he's a freak athlete off the edge. He makes plays when, it comes his way given the opportunity. And again, he forced fumbles. So, I like those guys that consistently force fumbles. Next 5, I got Chase Winovich at 11, and he's very tight, very, very close to being in the top 10. Very good technique and pretty good quickness and speed off the edge as well. A couple injuries here at the end of the year. I guess that's what separates because, again, we got to split hairs. But very instinctive, very high motor guy. He should be, I'd say, an early 3rd round pick. At 12 is Joe Jackson. Not an insane amount of production, but consistently got solid production. But again, not an insane amount of production. I like him at 4-3 end. I think some people are talking about him 3-4 outside linebacker. I wouldn't rule it out, but I really like him at 4-3 end. Good strength, pretty solid athleticism. And then Ben Banogu at 13 from TCU. I think he's going to be a speed rusher off the outside, but he has some strength to him too. But definitely can work on the run, stopping the run. But again, speed rusher, and we see more of these guys in the NFL today, and you can develop them to something special. So Ben Banogu, I think, again, speed rusher with some upside. 14 is DeAndre Walker, another guy with a ton of upside. Why? Because Georgia used him in multiple different ways. One time it looked like he's their pass rush linebacker. One time it just looks like he's just an off-the-ball linebacker. So actually his next 2 guys are like that. But in the amount of sacks and production he was able to do, not an insane amount, but a pretty good amount for not being an every down pass rusher. Pretty impressive. So some upside there. He's a very good special teamer as well. And then 15 is Jordan Brailford, who I like a lot. I want to put him higher because his technique and he just gets the job done. We've seen him at the East-West Shrine game at Senior Bowl. He's just, he gets to the quarterback. That's a fact. At Oklahoma State, just moved him around quite a bit. They didn't really know what he was, and him in the right spot, which I think that's the problem with him. That's why I couldn't put him higher, because I think that's why Oklahoma State did this. You don't really know what he should be. His body is a 3-4 outside linebacker, but the way he uses his body and his mind is clearly a 4-3 defensive end. His moves on the line, on the ball right there are pretty darn good, and he gets to the quarterback, and he's pretty strong. He's a little lighter compared to some of these other guys, but he's strong, and it shows. So again, I think his body says 3-4 outside linebacker, but his moves and his mind and the way he uses his body is a 4-3 end, and I want to put him higher, but because that and the NFL will have somewhat of a problem with that, I had to move him down. But a ton of upside if given the chance. He gets the job done is really what it is. So it's really tough to split a lot of these guys up, and they're so close. And yeah, again, like I like Jordan Brailford, I want to move him up, but what's he gonna play? That's what a lot of these guys. What are they gonna play? Like Ben Banogu is gonna play 3-4 outside linebackers. So it's we're going to get to the rest of my rankings, by the way, in a second, but come to, the draft, if this is it happens for multiple, it applies for multiple positions, but it's not going to matter too much. So say a 3-4 team takes Ben Benogu over Joe Jackson, that's a good pick because he fits more. So everybody going to come back, look at my board and say, they took this guy over this guy, but there's a reason for that. So NFL teams are smart in that way. But let's get to the rest of my rankings here. I'll put the link in the description for this. So yeah, as you can see, the guys at the top, and then we'll go down. And, I'm a little lower on some guys that people are high on, so we'll get to those. 16 is Austin Bryant, another guy that I wanted to squeeze in my top 15 because he had pretty darn good production his years at Clemson. It's just, I think he's, kind of the one that gets overshadowed over there at Clemson, but pretty productive. He can get after the quarterback and not going to wow. Max Crosby, who I really like from Eastern Michigan, a lot of production over his last few years, consistently got sacks, consistently had forced fumbles. These guys with the forced fumbles seem to continue to force the fumbles. So I do like Crosby. He had in 2017, he had back-to-back games with 3 sacks in both those games and a forced fumble in both those games. Those are back-to-back games. Pretty crazy. The problem with him is, and I would like to put him higher, but he played more of a defensive end role, but he's definitely going to be asked to step back because he's on the lighter side. So how's he going to be going against the stronger tackles? So that's the major question. I do really like him, but I couldn't put him higher than this. Zach Allen, 18, and Anthony Nelson, 19. These two guys are very similar to me, pretty much the same thing. I think pretty much everyone else is way higher on them than I am, and I'll explain why I'm at where I'm at. So really for Zach Allen, both these guys, they had solid production. Didn't have a ton of production. I think people act like they had a lot of production. Zach Allen had a year where he had an insane amount of tackles. I think it was 2 years ago. He played opposite of Harold Landry until this year was opposite of Wyatt Ray, who we'll get to in a little bit. But to me, because for really both these guys, and mainly Zach Allen, because their lack of athleticism and because, they have some size to them, they should be a 3-4 end, but they are not strong enough to be a 3-4 end. And yeah, you can get strong, you can add strength in the NFL program. It's just hard for me to see. We saw Zach Allen go to the Senior Bowl, and he got bullied. He got bullied in one-on-ones. He got bullied in the game by offensive tackles that are probably mid-round guys, maybe second at the highest. So it's alarming to me. It's a little scary, and just over time, I just kept moving Zach Allen down, because because of his body and lack of athleticism, he should be a 3-4 end, but I just don't, and I originally had him listed there, I just don't think he has the strength, so he's not, and if he doesn't have the strength, he has to develop more athleticism, so we'll see. And kind of going back, he didn't have an insane amount of production where he's just gets the job done, And Anthony Nelson, people are pretty high on him. I like his upside. He's pretty lengthy, and really the reason why, he has more upside and people are kind of higher on him now, and I still believe in him, is because the combine numbers were pretty significant. They're pretty, he didn't expect him to do that well. But again, it's almost like he should be a 3-4 end, but he's definitely not strong enough for 3-4 end. He'll definitely be a 4-3 defensive end and develop there. But, and again, a pretty good class down here. I still think these guys are solid. I think they'll go in the mid rounds, maybe early maybe around it should be day 3. But early to mid day 3. But some of these guys ahead of them, I just think are better. They have more upside as well. 20 is Sharif Miller. I thought was better 2 seasons ago. Pretty solid season last year. I like him at 4-3 end. Justin Hollins has a ton of upside. Freak athlete. Didn't have a ton of production, but he did have forced fumbles. So we'll see if he can bring that to the NFL. But again, freak athlete. Jonathan Ledbetter is a dominant run stopper. Not too involved in pass rush in the pass game, so that's why he drops. But if you can develop that pass rush ability, then he already has the run stopping ability there. So he has a ton of upside for that reason. Jalen Jelks, most people have Jelks out of Hollins. I like Hollins a little more. Hollins has way more room to grow. That's why I guess Jelks would be better if we started today. It's really not what it's all about, though. But I like him as a 3-4 outside linebacker, just like Hollins. Jelks has the ability to maybe play 4-3, and Hollins I just strictly view as a 3-4 outside linebacker. Ronheen Bingham, I think could be a speed rusher. Played a little bit of both, but mainly played end. I like him at 3-4 outside linebacker because he's quick, he's fast. So he could be a speed rusher with some upside. Wyatt Ray, speaking of upside, other upside guy, he had 1 year really playing full-time because Harold Landry was gone, and he had a pretty productive year. He's not getting talked about enough. So he had 1 year to, step in from Harold Landry, hard guy to replace, and he did a pretty good job. So Wyatt Ray, I like at, not really the same as Harold Landry. I think will be more of a 4-3-M, which Harold Landry could do with both, but some upside there. Jamal Davis, freaky combine, so he has some upside. Kaminsky, another guy that is surprising combine. I view him as strictly as a 4-3-N. Could even slide into 3-4. And Malik Carney, North Carolina. North Carolina was not a well-coached team, so some of these North Carolina guys, pretty much at any position, have some upside. And then Malik Reed has the ability he's going to be a 3-4 outside linebacker. He has the ability to possibly be a 4-3 outside linebacker. Derek Roberson from Houston State, pretty productive, not against best competition, pretty productive with former Texas transfer Sutton Smith. Northern Illinois, local for me. It's pretty close here. Watched them plenty of times. So Sutton Smith, ton of production. Always had production, always flying around the field. And it's just tough because he's undersized. He's going to have to, step back, play more of a 3-4 role. And then you see him coming in the Senior Bowl, and he really got bullied. He got pancaked a lot against, the stronger linemen. So I don't think he gets drafted, but the production, sometimes the production is just the guy, as soon as he puts the pads on in a real game, he gets it done. So that's why I still list him. Some undrafted guys I don't list, but a guy like that I have to. Jerry Green, I think, will be an outside linebacker, and Randy Ramsey from Arkansas tops it off. So that's the 34 guys here. 34 of them. Possibly could add more. I know the Draft Network doesn't have all their guys in their system. They have a very cool website, very useful. So if they add those guys that I want to rank, we'll throw them in there before the draft. So link in the description for this. Plenty more positions to get to. Almost done with it, though. Again, we might have a live stream. We're going to have a live stream this week, not only just during the draft, but I'm thinking, usually we have them on Friday night. I'm thinking I'm going to push it back to Saturday afternoon. I want to get all the Goat House members involved, something to do with the draft. So we'll get there. But everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. That's going to do it for this one. Goodbye.